Hyunwoo Park rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the crystal again. The massive blue stone floated in the center of the research chamber, spinning slowly as holographic images danced around it. He had been studying this ancient star map for 3 months now, but something felt different today. The progenitor artifact was older than most civilizations in the galaxy, created by a race that had vanished 50,000 years ago. Every scholar in the Galactic Archives wanted to understand its secrets. The chamber hummed with quiet energy as his research partner approached. Kyle 7 was an Alteran, tall and graceful with silver skin that shimmered in the blue light. The Alterans were known throughout the galaxy for their brilliant minds and perfect memory. Kyle 7 had worked with the star map longer than anyone else, spending decades trying to decode its mysteries. "You look troubled today, friend Hyunwoo," Kyle 7 said, in his musical voice. "Have you found something new in the ancient patterns?" Hyunwoo pointed at a small section of the holographic display. Thousands of tiny lights showed star systems across the galaxy, each marked with symbols that told stories of the worlds they represented. Most symbols were simple geometric shapes that indicated different types of life or levels of civilization. But one symbol was completely different from all the others. "Look at this world," Hyunwoo said, highlighting a small blue dot in an unremarkable corner of the galaxy. "Every other planet has symbols I can understand. This one shows a mark I have never seen before." The symbol was complex and beautiful, made of intertwining lines that seemed to move even when the hologram was still. When Hyunwoo touched the controls to examine it closer, strange words appeared in the ancient progenitor language. He had learned enough of their writing to understand basic concepts, but these words were special. "The Forge," he whispered, reading the translation that appeared on his screen. "Or maybe the Crucible, the place where something is made or tested." Kyle 7 moved closer, his large eyes studying the display with intense focus. Altarans could process visual information much faster than humans, and his expression showed growing surprise as he examined the symbol. "This is impossible," Kyle 7 said after a long moment. "I have studied every symbol in this map for 47 years. This marking appears nowhere else in the entire galaxy, not on any world, not in any system. It is completely unique." Hyunwoo felt his heart beat faster. In archaeology, finding something unique usually meant finding something important. He checked the coordinates that the symbol marked and felt his breath catch in his throat. The location was familiar, very familiar. "Kyle 7, he said slowly. "These coordinates point to Earth, my home world." The Alteran's silver skin seemed to pale even more. Earth was known throughout the galaxy as an interesting but unremarkable world. Humans had only joined galactic civilization 200 years ago, making them one of the newest species in the community. Most other races had been traveling between stars for thousands of years before humans even discovered fire. "There must be an error," Kel 7 said, but his voice sounded uncertain. "The progenitors created this map before your species existed. How could they know about Earth? How could they mark it with such reverence?" Hyunwoo began pulling up every piece of information he could find about Earth's location and history. The coordinates matched perfectly, there was no mistake. Somehow, an ancient alien race had marked his homeworld as something special, something worth noting with a symbol they used nowhere else in the galaxy. "We need to contact Captain Namjin," Hyunwoo said, reaching for his communication device. "This discovery is too important to keep to ourselves." Namjin Choi was the captain of the human exploration vessel Aegis, currently docked at Nexus Prime for supplies and crew rest. He was known throughout the human fleet as a capable leader, who never panicked even in the strangest situations. If anyone could help them understand what this discovery meant, it would be him. The communication screen flickered to life, showing Namjin's weathered face in the bridge of his ship. Behind him, Hyunwoo could see the familiar organized chaos of a human vessel. Other species built their ships with perfect order and clean lines, but human ships always looked like they were ready for a fight. "Dr. Park," Namjin said with a slight smile, "I hope you are calling with good news. We are scheduled to leave Nexus Prime tomorrow, and I could use something interesting to tell my crew. Captain, I need you to sit down." Hyunwoo said. What I am about to tell you will change everything we thought we knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. Namjin's expression became serious immediately. He had learned to trust Hyunwoo's judgment during their previous missions together. When the archaeologist said something was important, it usually was. Hyunwoo explained everything they had discovered, showing Namjin the ancient star map and the unique symbol marking Earth. He watched as the captain's eyes grew wider with each piece of information. When he finished explaining, the communication channel was silent for a long moment. Are you certain about this? Namjin finally asked. There is no chance of error in the coordinates or translation. We have checked everything 3 times, Hyunwoo replied. The progenitors marked Earth as something they called the Forge or the Crucible. They used a symbol for our world that appears nowhere else in their records. Namjin stood up and began pacing, which was something he only did when he was thinking about something very serious. Hyunwoo had seen him remain calm during space battles and first contact situations, but this discovery seemed to shake him in a way that combat never did. Dr. Park, you realize what this means? Namjin said. If an ancient race marked Earth, as special before humans even existed, it suggests our evolution might not have been as random as we thought. It suggests someone or something was watching us, maybe even guiding our development. The implications were staggering. Humans had always assumed they were lucky to have survived their difficult evolutionary history. Earth had experienced ice, ages, massive volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, and countless other disasters that should have wiped out intelligent life. Most other species had evolved under much more stable conditions. Captain, I need to ask a favor, Hyunwoo said. Can you delay your departure? I want to gather more evidence before we report this to the Galactic Council. If we are wrong about this, we will look foolish. If we are right, this news will shock every civilization in the galaxy. Namjin nodded immediately. Consider your request approved. I will tell my crew we are extending our stay for important research. How much time do you need? Give me 1 week, Hyunwoo said. I want to search through every progenitor record we have access to. If they marked Earth as special, there might be other references to our world or our species in their archives. After ending the communication, Hyunwoo turned back to the star map with renewed determination. Kyle 7 was already pulling up additional progenitor databases, his long fingers dancing across holographic controls with practiced efficiency. Where do we start? The Alteran asked. We start with the symbol itself, Hyunwoo replied. This mark represents something the progenitors considered important enough to create a completely new symbol for. If we can understand what it means, we might understand why they marked Earth. The 2 researchers worked through the night examining every piece of progenitor writing they could access. The ancient race had left behind vast libraries of information, but most of it was fragmentary and difficult to translate. They had been gone for so long that understanding their language was like trying to solve a puzzle with most of the pieces missing. As the hours passed, Hyunwoo began to notice patterns in the progenitor texts that he had never seen before. References to something they called Children of Fire and those who are forged in chaos appeared in several different documents. The words were always written with the same reverent tone that ancient humans might have used when writing about gods or heroes. Kale 7, he said as dawn broke over Nexus Prime. I think the progenitors were not just marking Earth as important. I think they were marking it as necessary. 3 days later, the joint expedition fleet left Nexus Prime with a sense of urgency that surprised even the experienced crews. Captain Namjin stood on the bridge of the Aegis, watching as alien vessels formed up around his ship in a protective formation. The Galactic Council had approved the mission immediately after hearing about the discovery, something that usually took months of debate and planning. Dr. Yuna Kim worked frantically in her laboratory, surrounded by holographic displays, showing progenitor texts and translation matrices. As the expedition's lead scientist, she felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. Every piece of information they could decode before reaching Earth might be crucial to understanding why the ancient race had marked humanity's home world as special. Her research partner was unlike anyone she had ever worked with before. Thrix 9 belonged to a species called the Zephyrians. insectoid beings with compound eyes and forearms that could work independently of each other. The Zephyrians were known for their logical minds and ability to process multiple complex problems simultaneously. Thrix 9 could read 3 different progenitor texts while analyzing linguistic patterns and still carry on a conversation. The translations are becoming more disturbing, Thrix 9 said, his voice buzzing with the strange harmonics of his species. Look at this passage from what appears to be a progenitor military record. Yuna read the translated text on her screen and felt a chill run down her spine. The ancient word spoke of a great testing that was coming, a trial that would determine which species in the galaxy were worthy of survival. The progenitors wrote about preparing champions who could fight in conditions that would destroy ordinary civilizations. They were not just observers, Yuna said quietly. They were preparing for something they knew was coming. Meanwhile, in the engineering section of the Aegis, Taeho Lim was dealing with problems that made no sense according to everything he knew about space travel. The alien ships in their fleet were experiencing technical malfunctions that seemed to target their most advanced systems. Neural interfaces that allowed alien crews to control their ships through thought alone were failing randomly. Consciousness enhancement technologies that most species relied on for faster decision-making were shutting down without warning. The strangest part was that these malfunctions only affected alien technology. Human ships remained completely unaffected, running as smoothly as they always did. Taeho had checked and double-checked his own systems, but everything was operating normally. "Captain," he reported to Namjin through the ship's communication system, "I am receiving reports from our alien allies that their ships are having serious problems. The Alteran vessel, Song of Stars, has lost main power twice in the last hour. The Zephyrian ship Harmony of Logic is reporting complete failure of their neural control systems." Namjin frowned as he listened to the report. Technical failures during space travel were always dangerous, but these problems seemed too coordinated to be accidents. It was almost as if something was deliberately interfering with alien technology while leaving human systems alone. "How far are we from the Sol system?" he asked. 2 days at current speed," Taeho replied. "But Captain, the closer we get to Earth, the worse the malfunctions become. If this continues, our alien allies might not be able to maintain formation much longer." The situation became even more concerning when Dr. Yuna made another discovery in the progenitor archives. She had been searching for any references to technological interference when she found a series of warnings written in the ancient language. The translation was fragmentary, but the meaning was clear enough to make her hands shake as she read it. "Beware the children of the forge," the text said, "for they are wrought in fire and know not the sweet poison of ease. Where they walk, the crutches of comfort fail, and only the strong of spirit may follow." Yuna called an emergency meeting with the expedition leaders, gathering them in the main conference room of the Aegis. Representatives from 5 different species sat around the table, their expressions ranging from confusion to growing alarm, as she explained what she had found. "The progenitors were warning about something connected to Earth," she said, displaying the translated text for everyone to see. "They wrote about technological failures and the collapse of what they called comfort systems. The closer we get to the Sol system, the more these warnings seem to be coming true." Commander Vel 7 of the Alteran vessel shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The tall silver being had seemed confident when the expedition began, but now his usually calm demeanor showed signs of stress. "My ship's systems are failing in ways we have never experienced," he admitted. "Our neural interfaces allow us to think and react faster than most species, but they are becoming unreliable. My crew is having to operate our vessel manually, using methods we have not needed for centuries." Captain Zik Prime of the Zephyrian ship nodded his insectoid head in agreement. "Our consciousness enhancement networks are also failing. We rely on shared mental processing to coordinate complex operations, but the connection keeps breaking down. It is like something is actively disrupting our ability to function as we normally do." Namjin listened to these reports with growing understanding. Humans had never developed the advanced neural interfaces and consciousness enhancement technologies that other species took for granted. Human ships were designed to be operated by individual crew members working together, not by beings who could share thoughts or control systems through mental commands alone. What if this is not an attack? He said slowly. What if this is a test? The alien representatives looked at him with expressions of confusion, but Yuna nodded as she began to understand what he meant. The progenitors called Earth the Forge, she said. A forge is a place where metal is heated and hammered to make it stronger. What if they meant that humans were forged by difficult conditions made strong by having to survive without the advanced technologies other species rely on? Thrix-9 buzzed with agitation as he processed this idea. You are suggesting that your species' lack of neural enhancement and consciousness sharing is actually an advantage? That sounds impossible. Is it? Namjin asked. Every other species in this fleet is struggling because their most advanced systems are failing. Human crews are operating normally because we never had those systems to begin with. We learned to function as individuals working together, not as collective consciousness or enhanced beings. The meeting continued for hours as they tried to understand what they were facing. The closer they got to Earth, the clearer it became that something about humanity's home system was actively hostile to the technological advantages that other species had developed. It was not destroying their ships, but it was stripping away the enhancements that made their civilizations possible. Dr. Yuna spent the rest of the journey searching through every progenitor record she could access, looking for more information about Earth and its significance. What she found painted a picture that was both terrifying and inspiring. The ancient race had not just observed humanity's development. They had been preparing the galaxy for something that required a species, like humans, to exist. References to the time of testing and the great silence that devours worlds appeared throughout their archives. The progenitors wrote about previous cycles where entire galactic civilizations had vanished, consumed by something that fed on order and technological perfection. They had tried to fight this threat using their advanced technologies and collective wisdom, but they had failed. Their final solution had been desperate and brilliant. They had found a world where intelligent life could develop under the harshest possible conditions, shaped by constant disasters and forced to survive through individual strength and adaptability, rather than technological perfection. They had marked this world as the Forge, the place where the galaxy's ultimate survivors would be created. As the expedition fleet finally entered the Sol system, the alien ships were barely functional. Their crews had to shut down most of their advanced systems just to maintain basic life support. Only the human vessels remained at full capability, their simple but robust technologies unaffected by whatever force was protecting Earth. Namjin stood on his bridge, looking at the blue and white marble that was humanity's birth world, and felt a chill of understanding. Earth was not just his home, it was a weapon that the progenitors had spent millions of years creating. A weapon designed to produce beings who could survive and fight when all the galaxy's technological marvels failed. The question that remained was simple and terrifying. What were humans forged to fight against? And when would that enemy arrive? If, in answer to his thoughts, long-range sensors throughout the fleet began detecting massive disturbances at the edge of the galaxy. Something vast and dark was moving between the stars, and wherever it passed, all communications went silent. The time of testing that the progenitors had written about was beginning, and humanity was about to learn why they had been marked as the Forge. The expedition fleet hung in Earth's orbit like wounded birds, their alien vessels struggling to maintain basic functions while human ships operated normally. Captain Namjin watched through the bridge windows as shuttles launched from the surface, carrying Earth's top scientists to meet with the expedition members. The irony was not lost on him that the galaxy's most advanced civilizations were now dependent on humanity's primitive technology just to communicate. Dr. Sujin Oh arrived on the first shuttle, her face bright with excitement despite the serious circumstances. As Earth's foremost evolutionary biologist, she had spent decades studying how life developed on their world, compared to other planets in the galaxy. When she learned about the progenitor discovery, she immediately began gathering evidence that would either support or disprove the ancient race's claims about Earth's significance. Captain Namjin, she said as she stepped onto the bridge, I have been studying comparative evolution for 30 years, but I never understood how unique Earth really was until now. What I am about to show you will change how every species in the galaxy thinks about intelligence and survival. The main conference room of the Aegis quickly filled with beings from across the galaxy, all struggling to adapt to the strange technological failures that seem to affect only non-human systems. Su-Jin connected her research data to the ship's simple display screens, technology so basic that most alien species had abandoned it centuries ago. Every intelligent species we have encountered evolved under what we would consider ideal conditions, she began, showing comparative data from dozens of worlds. Stable climates, abundant resources, predictable environmental changes. Their evolutionary paths were smooth and steady, allowing their ancestors to develop large brains and complex societies without facing constant existential threats. The images on screen showed paradise worlds where evolution had proceeded like a peaceful river, flowing steadily toward intelligence and civilization, abundant food sources, mild weather, and gradual changes that gave species time to adapt and grow stronger. Earth was different, Su-Jin continued, switching to data about humanity's homeworld. Our planet experienced more major catastrophes in the last 1,000,000 years than most worlds see in 10 million. Ice ages that covered continents for thousands of years, supervolcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades, asteroid impacts that wiped out entire ecosystems, mass extinctions that eliminated 90% of all life on multiple occasions. The alien expedition members looked at the data with expressions of horror and disbelief. Commander Vel 7 of the Altarans spoke for many of them when he said, "How did any intelligent life survive such conditions? Most species would have been extinct after the first major catastrophe." "That is exactly the point," Su-Jin replied with a grim smile. "Most species would not have survived. But the conditions on Earth did not just allow survival, they demanded it. Every generation of human ancestors had to be smarter, tougher, and more adaptable than the last, or they would die. We were not evolving toward intelligence in comfortable conditions. We were being forged in fire." Dr. Yuna Kim, who had been studying progenitor texts during the entire journey, nodded as she began to understand the full picture. The ancient archives spoke about children of fire and beings forged in chaos. They were describing humans specifically. They knew that Earth's harsh conditions would create something different from every other intelligent species. "But it goes deeper than just surviving disasters," Su-Jin continued, bringing up new data that made even the human expedition members gasp. "I have been studying human colony worlds for the past week, comparing their development to established alien civilizations. The results are extraordinary." The screen showed information about every human settlement in the galaxy, from the oldest colonies that had been established 200 years ago to the newest outposts on the frontier. What the data revealed was a pattern that no one had noticed before. Human colonies that are established in peaceful, resource-rich areas tend to stagnate after a few generations, Su-Jin explained. They become comfortable and stop innovating. Their technology development slows down, their scientific research becomes routine, and their society becomes predictable. However, human colonies that face extreme challenges show the opposite pattern. Settlements dealing with hostile environments, resource shortages, natural disasters, or external threats consistently produce technological breakthroughs that revolutionize entire fields of science. The more difficult their situation, the more innovative they become. Commander Boram Lee, head of Earth's Defense Forces, had been listening quietly from the back of the room. Now she stepped forward, with a grim expression on her weathered face. She was a veteran of humanity's expansion into space, someone who had fought in conflicts that most other species could not even comprehend. "Dr. O is being diplomatic," Boram said bluntly. "What she is not telling you is that we have classified information about human performance in crisis situations, information that explains why the progenitors marked our world as they did." She activated her own data display, showing military records that had never been shared with alien allies. In every major conflict or disaster situation where humans and other species have worked together, the same pattern emerges. When conditions are normal and comfortable, other species often outperform humans. Their enhanced cognitive abilities, shared consciousness networks, and advanced technologies give them significant advantages. But when situations become chaotic, dangerous, and unpredictable, something changes. Human performance improves while other species begin to struggle. The worse the crisis becomes, the bigger this difference grows. In the most extreme situations, humans continue to function and adapt while our alien allies become paralyzed by conditions they cannot process. The room fell silent as the implications of this information sank in. Species that had dominated the galaxy through their advanced civilizations and perfect technologies were learning that their greatest strengths might also be their greatest weaknesses. Thrix 9, the Zephyrian researcher, buzzed with agitation as he processed this data. You are suggesting that humans are somehow designed for chaos and conflict, that your species performs better under adverse conditions than under ideal ones? Not designed, Namjin said quietly. Forged. The progenitors did not create us, but they recognized what Earth's brutal history had created. They saw a species that had been hammered into shape by constant adversity, made strong by surviving conditions that would destroy any normal civilization. Dr. Yuna pulled up the latest translations from the progenitor archives, text that she had only finished decoding during the journey to Earth. The ancient records are clear about this. They write about previous galactic cycles where advanced civilizations faced a threat that their technologies and collective wisdom could not defeat, something that consumed order and fed on technological perfection. The progenitors survived that threat, but barely. Their records suggest that they spent the rest of their existence preparing for its return. They searched the galaxy for worlds where a different kind of intelligent life could develop, life that would be strong enough to fight when advanced technology failed. Sujin nodded as she brought up the final piece of evidence. Earth was not the only world they monitored, but it was the only one that produced results. The geological record shows clear evidence of artificial interference in our planet's development. Asteroid redirections that triggered ice ages at crucial moments in human evolution. Volcanic eruptions that were too precisely timed to be natural. The progenitors were not just watching our development, they were guiding it. They turned our entire world into a forge, she continued, heating and hammering our species for millions of years until we became something that could survive anything. Every disaster that should have destroyed us instead made us stronger. Every catastrophe that would have ended any other species became a test that we passed. Commander Vel 7 spoke with a voice full of wonder and fear. If this is true, then humans are not just another intelligent species. You are weapons. Living weapons created to fight something that the galaxy's most advanced civilization could not defeat. The question, Namjin said grimly, is what we were forged to fight against. As if the universe itself was answering his question, emergency alerts began sounding throughout the fleet. Long-range sensors were detecting massive gravitational disturbances at the galaxy's edge, signatures unlike anything in the databases of any known species. Whatever was approaching was vast beyond comprehension, and its presence was causing stars themselves to go dark. Communications arrays throughout the galaxy were reporting the same terrifying phenomenon. Star systems at the galactic rim were falling silent one by one, their signals simply stopping as if someone had turned off a switch. The pattern was spreading inward like a wave of darkness, consuming everything in its path. The silence that the progenitors had written about was returning, and it was moving toward the heart of galactic civilization. Earth, the forge world that had spent millions of years creating the galaxy's ultimate survivors, was about to face the test it had been prepared for. The deep ocean research vessel Titan's Dream cut through the dark waters of the Pacific Trench, its lights pushing back the crushing darkness that surrounded them. Marine archaeologist Jinho Bei stood at the observation window, watching as they descended toward coordinates that had appeared on no map until 3 days ago. The progenitor star map had revealed more than just Earth's significance. It had shown the location of something hidden beneath the deepest part of Earth's oceans. Approaching target depth, reported the ship's pilot, a young woman named Sujin Park, whose steady hands had never failed during the most dangerous underwater missions. Jinho, what we are seeing down here should not be possible. Through the observation window, Jinho could see structures that clearly were not natural. Massive geometric shapes rose from the ocean floor like monuments to a civilization that had existed before humans had even learned to make fire. The architecture was unmistakably progenitor in design, matching the same mathematical patterns found in their star maps and ancient artifacts. "How long have these been down here?" Sujin asked as she maneuvered the vessel closer to what appeared to be the main entrance of a vast underwater complex. "Based on the sediment patterns, at least 50,000 years, Jinho replied, his voice filled with awe and nervousness. The progenitors were here on Earth. They built this place and then left, waiting for the right time for it to be discovered. The entrance to the complex was sealed with a barrier that looked like crystallized energy, beautiful and clearly artificial. As their research vessel approached, sensors throughout the ship began detecting something that made Jinho's heart race with excitement and fear. The barrier was scanning them, and the scans were specifically looking for human DNA. "Jinho," Sujin said with tension in her voice, "the barrier is responding to us. It is not just scanning our ship, it is scanning the crew. It wants to know if we are human." The crystalline barrier suddenly flowed apart like liquid light, revealing a passage large enough for their vessel to enter. Emergency lights activated throughout the complex, creating a path that led deeper into the progenitor installation. It was clear that this place had been waiting for humans to find it, and only humans could gain access to whatever secrets lay within. As they moved through the underwater complex, Jinho was amazed by the technology that surrounded them. The progenitors had built this installation to last for tens of thousands of years in the crushing depths of Earth's ocean, and every system was still functioning perfectly. Halls wide enough for their research vessels stretched into the distance, lit by energy sources that showed no signs of aging or decay. "There," Sujin said, pointing toward a massive chamber at the heart of the complex. "That looks like the main archive room. If the progenitors left information for us to find, it will be in there." The chamber was enormous, easily large enough to hold a small city. In the center stood a pillar of the same crystalline material as the star map, but this one was 10 times larger and infinitely more complex. As their vessel entered the chamber, the pillar began to glow with internal light, and holographic displays activated throughout the space. The moment Jinho's feet touched the floor of the chamber, the entire installation responded to his presence. DNA scanners confirmed his human genetic code, and the greatest archive of progenitor knowledge ever discovered came online for the first time in 50,000 years. The holographic displays showed star charts, scientific data, and historical records that covered the entire history of galactic civilization. But what dominated the central display was a warning so urgent and terrifying that Jinho felt his knees go weak as he read the translated text. "The silence comes again," the message began, written in letters of fire across the holographic sky. "As it has come before, and as it will come after. We, the progenitors, were the guardians of the previous galactic cycle. We failed in our duty, and our failure doomed countless civilizations to extinction." The display showed images of the galaxy as it had existed millions of years ago, filled with thousands of different species and civilizations that Jinho had never heard of. Ancient races that had built technologies beyond anything that existed in the current galactic community, beings of incredible wisdom and power who had seemed invincible in their mastery of the universe. "The silence is not a species or a force that can be reasoned with," the message continued. "It is consumption itself, entropy given form and purpose. It feeds on order, complexity, and technological advancement. The more perfect a civilization becomes, the more attractive it is to the silence." Jinho watched in horror as the historical record showed what had happened to those ancient civilizations. The silence had swept through the galaxy like a wave of darkness, consuming entire star systems and leaving nothing behind but empty space. Advanced technologies had not just failed to stop it, they had made the situation worse by providing more complex systems for the silence to devour. "We tried to fight using our greatest weapons and most sophisticated strategies," the progenitor message explained. "Every attempt only made the silence stronger. It consumed our technologies and turned them against us. It fed on our unity and cooperation, using our very strengths to destroy us. The archive then showed the progenitors' final desperate plan. Unable to defeat the Silence through conventional means, they had searched the galaxy for worlds where a different kind of intelligent life could develop. Life that would be strong enough to resist the Silence, not through technological superiority, but through adaptability and individual strength. "We found your world," the message said, focusing on Earth in the galactic display. "A planet where evolution proceeded not through comfort and stability, but through constant trial and testing. We guided your development, ensuring that your species would be forged in the fires of adversity." Jinho realized that he was looking at the complete history of human evolution, shown from the perspective of beings who had been actively influencing it for millions of years. Every major disaster in Earth's history had been carefully orchestrated to push humanity toward becoming something that could survive conditions that would destroy any other intelligent species. "You are not weapons," the progenitor message continued, addressing humanity directly across the gap of 50,000 years. "You are survivors. You are chaos made intelligent, entropy turned toward creation instead of destruction. Where the Silence consumes order, you create order from chaos. Where it feeds on technological perfection, you succeed through improvisation and adaptation." The archive began displaying tactical information about the Silence, data that the progenitors had gathered during their failed war against it. The enemy was vast beyond comprehension, existing partially outside normal space and time. It could not be destroyed by conventional weapons because it was not really alive in any sense that organic beings could understand. But the progenitors had discovered something crucial during their final battles. The Silence struggled to consume systems that were chaotic, unpredictable, and constantly changing. It fed on stability and order, but chaos confused and weakened it. Technologies that broke down regularly, strategies that changed constantly, and beings who thrived in disorder were the only things that had ever shown any resistance to its advance. "Your species excels at organized chaos," the message explained. "You function best when systems are breaking down, when plans are falling apart, and when impossible odds demand impossible solutions. This is not a flaw in your design, it is your greatest strength." The archive then revealed the most important piece of information. The Silence was returning, and it was already at the galaxy's edge. Long-range sensors throughout the installation were detecting the same gravitational disturbances that had been reported by the expedition fleet in orbit. The enemy that had consumed the previous galactic civilization was beginning its assault on the current one. "The time of testing has come," the progenitor message concluded. "We have given you the tools you need, forged your species in the fires of adversity, and prepared the galaxy for this moment. You are humanity, children of the Forge, and you are the only hope for all intelligent life in this galaxy." As Jinho absorbed this incredible revelation, alarms began sounding throughout the underwater complex. The installation's sensors were detecting massive disturbances in space above them, signs that the Silence had begun its attack on the outer systems of the galaxy. Communications from the surface brought reports that were exactly what the progenitor warnings had predicted. Star systems at the galactic rim were falling silent one by one. Advanced alien civilizations that had seemed invincible were discovering that their greatest technological achievements were useless against an enemy that consumed order itself. Only the chaotic, improvised technologies of humanity seemed to function normally as the Silence spread its influence across the galaxy. Pilot Sujin Park received an urgent message from the surface. "Jinho, we need to get back to the expedition fleet immediately. Admiral Da Yun Song is requesting all human vessels to report for emergency deployment. The galaxy is under attack, and apparently we are the only ones who can fight back." As they prepared to leave the progenitor installation, Jinho took one last look at the ancient archive. Admiral Da Yun Song stood on the bridge of the battlecruiser Indomitable, watching as the Silence swept across star systems like a tide of darkness consuming everything in its path. Through the main display, she could see the death of civilizations that had existed for millions of years, their perfect technologies and ordered societies crumbling within hours of first contact with the ancient enemy. Reports flooded in from across the galaxy, each one more desperate than the last. The Alteran core worlds, with their crystalline cities and neural network governments, had fallen silent after 3 days of resistance. The Zephyrian collective consciousness, spanning dozens of star systems, had been severed and consumed in less than a week. Every advanced civilization that the Silence encountered simply stopped existing, their order and technological perfection becoming food for an enemy that grew stronger with each victory. But scattered throughout the disaster, reports were stories that defied explanation. Human colonies and outposts, many of them considered primitive backwaters by galactic standards, were not just surviving the initial contact with the Silence, but actually fighting back successfully. Mining stations that relied on improvised equipment were holding their positions. Military outposts using outdated weapons were driving off attacks that had destroyed alien fleets. Admiral, reported Communications Officer Min-Ho Kang from his station, I am receiving a transmission from the frontier colony on Kepler 442b. They report successful defense against what they describe as a reality-consuming enemy. Casualties are minimal, and their defenses are holding. Dayun frowned as she studied the tactical display. Kepler 442b was a harsh world where human colonists struggled to survive using equipment that was decades behind current galactic standards. Most alien species considered it barely habitable, a place where only the most desperate or adventurous humans would choose to live. Yet somehow these colonists were succeeding, where advanced civilizations had failed completely. What weapons are they using, she asked. Improvised plasma cannons built from mining equipment, ma'am, Min-Ho replied. Armor welded together from scrap metal, personal shields powered by generators that break down every few hours and need constant repair. According to their report, the enemy seemed confused by equipment that was already broken and kept changing. General Min-Ho Kang, commanding the ground forces aboard the Indomitable, had been studying similar reports from human settlements across the galaxy. As the cousin of the communications officer, he shared the same analytical mind and attention to detail that made their family name respected throughout the human military. Admiral, I think we are seeing a pattern here, he said, bringing up a holographic map showing human colonies and their survival rates. The more primitive and chaotic a human settlement is, the better they perform against the Silence. Our most advanced colonies, the ones using alien technology and ordered systems, are struggling. But places like Kepler 442b, where humans have to improvise everything, are not just surviving but winning. Captain Nam Jin, now serving as Da-Eun's strategic advisor, nodded as he studied the data. His experience from the expedition to Earth had given him insights that proved crucial as humanity faced its ultimate test. The progenitor archives were clear about this. The Silence feeds on order and technological perfection. Our strength is not our technology, it is our ability to function when technology fails. Dayun made a decision that would have seemed insane to any other species but felt perfectly natural to a human military leader. Send orders to all human fleets and colonies. Disable non-essential advanced systems. Switch to manual controls and improvised equipment wherever possible. Tell our people to fight dirty, fight chaotic, and never let the enemy predict what we will do next. Across the galaxy, human commanders received these orders and began implementing tactics that their alien allies could not understand. Fleets that had been operating in perfect formation suddenly broke apart into seemingly random groups. Ships that had been using sophisticated targeting systems switched to manual weapons control. Ground forces abandoned coordinated battle plans in favor of guerrilla tactics that changed moment by moment. The results were immediate and dramatic. Human forces that had been struggling against the Silence suddenly began achieving victories that seemed impossible. The ancient enemy, which had consumed ordered civilizations with ease, found itself confused and frustrated by opponents who refused to fight in predictable ways. Dr. Hyun-Woo Park, now aboard the Indomitable as chief xenoarchaeologist, spent his time translating progenitor tactical manuals that provided crucial insights into fighting the Silence. What he found confirmed everything they were learning through bitter experience. The progenitors tried to fight using their most advanced weapons and perfect strategies, he reported to Admiral Daoun during a strategy meeting. Every attempt failed because the silence consumed their order and turned it against them. But in their final battles, they discovered that small groups using improvised tactics could sometimes succeed where massive fleets had failed. The key is unpredictability, he continued, showing ancient battle records on the conference room display. The silence can consume and control any system that operates according to fixed rules. But chaos confuses it. Weapons that malfunction randomly, strategies that change constantly, and soldiers who make decisions based on instinct rather than doctrine are the only things that have ever damaged it. This revelation led to the development of human fighting techniques that would have been considered madness by any military academy in the galaxy. Human ships deliberately introduced random malfunctions into their systems, making their weapons and shields operate in unpredictable patterns. Ground forces abandoned standard tactics in favor of constantly shifting approaches that even their own commanders could not predict. Pilot Wu Jin Han, flying a modified fighter that had been deliberately damaged and repaired dozens of times, achieved the first confirmed kill of a silence entity. His after-action report described a battle that made no sense according to conventional military theory. "My targeting computer was failing every 30 seconds, he reported. "My engines were misfiring randomly. My weapons were firing at different power levels because the energy regulators were broken. The enemy kept trying to predict my attack patterns, but even I did not know what my ship was going to do next. Eventually, it just gave up, and I was able to destroy it with a weapon that should not have been able to penetrate its defenses." As human forces began to understand how to fight the silence effectively, they also began to rescue the surviving remnants of alien civilizations. What they found confirmed the progenitor warnings about the nature of their enemy. The silence did not just destroy its victims, it consumed their order and technological advancement, leaving behind beings who could barely function without the systems they had depended on for millennia. Engineer Taiho Lim led rescue operations that brought alien refugees aboard human ships, where they struggled to adapt to technology that seemed primitive compared to what they had lost. Altarans who had relied on neural interfaces found themselves having to use manual controls for the first time in their lives. Zephyrians who had shared collective consciousness had to learn how to think as individuals. But gradually, these rescued aliens began to understand something profound about humanity and their place in the galaxy. Dr. Yuna Kim, working with refugee scientists from a dozen species, discovered that aliens who learned to function aboard chaotic human ships became resistant to the silence's influence. "We are not just fighting this enemy," she reported to Admiral Dae Yoon. "We are teaching the galaxy how to survive it. Every alien who learns to function without perfect technology, every refugee who adapts to our improvised systems, becomes someone who can resist the silence." The final confrontation came at the galactic core, where the silence had gathered its full strength for an assault on the remaining centers of civilization. Admiral Daoun led a fleet of human ships that looked like a collection of refugees compared to the perfect vessels that alien species had once commanded. But these improvised, constantly malfunctioning ships carried the galaxy's last hope. Captain Nam Jin, commanding the escort carrier Defiant Hope, watched as the silence revealed its true form for the first time. It was not a fleet or an army, but something far more terrifying. Pure entropy given consciousness and purpose, a force that existed to consume order and return the universe to chaos. But as the human fleet engaged this ultimate enemy, something extraordinary happened. For the first time in galactic history, the silence encountered beings who were stronger in chaos than in order, who fought better when their plans fell apart than when everything went according to schedule. Human crews sang battle songs as their ships fell apart around them, jury-rigging new weapons from the wreckage of old ones. Soldiers told jokes while fighting for their lives, maintaining morale through humor instead of discipline. Engineers performed miracles of improvisation that turned broken equipment into tools of victory. The battle lasted for days, with human forces adapting and changing their tactics faster than the silence could consume them. Every time the ancient enemy thought it understood human strategy,